and welcome to ITV News West Country with Seb and Kylie.
Thank you for joining us. The headlines this Wednesday evening. Cornwall Council faces a tricky balance as it tries to cut costs and also protect the most vulnerable.
Putting council tax up by 5% is completely the opposite of what I would want to do. But we have to produce a balanced budget.
Also tonight, what does the future of mining look like as Cornwall prepares to become a global hub for lithium?
Plus, letting the river run, the groundbreaking work that'll create a whole new landscape on Exmoor.
Be More Betty, the fundraiser from St Austell, who's raised hundreds of thousands for charity.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. First tonight, Cornwall Council's Cabinet has approved a draft budget which would mean a 5% hike in council tax bills. The authority is trying to make an extra £29 million in savings over the next year.
It also says it will be reviewing services that it's not obliged to provide. Well, our reporter Cathy Wardle has been following the story.
Well, at today's Cabinet meeting, the Council said it simply doesn't have enough money to do everything that it wants and needs to do. And it's blamed the continuing fallout from the pandemic, the cost of living crisis and high inflation for putting extra pressure on its budgets. And as a result, it's looking to save an extra £10.8 million in savings today. That's on top of £18.7 million in savings already approved. Now, those include a 4.99% rise in council tax, which would mean an extra £90 per year for the average Band D property, a 5% rise on pay and display parking, and undisclosed extra charges for green and bulky waste. Well, the council's deputy leader, David Harris, says some very difficult decisions are having to be made.
Let there be no argument about this. It is a difficult proposal to bring forward. The Conservative Party is a party of low taxation. I would dearly love to reduce council tax, but if you look at the demands on our services and the way everything has gone up unexpectedly over the last few years, we had the pandemic. Out of the pandemic, everything slowed down. As the pandemic came to an end, building materials, just as one example, shot up in price, not by 5 or 10%, but by 30%.
Well, Cornwall Council is also identifying areas where it can either reduce or stop its service provision. Now, one of those areas is children's services, where it's identified up to £1 million in savings, which could include cuts to home to school transport. Well, earlier we spoke to Councillor Jane Kirkham, who is also the Labour Party group leader for the council.
The sources of funds are much more limited now, and they're relying fully on the people of Cornwall, who obviously are struggling with wages, struggling with the cost of living crisis. And now all of that funding is having to come direct from Cornwall, rather than looking towards central government for help with some of those really important services. We have a super ageing population in Cornwall, so we have an awful lot of cost in things like social care.
Now, all of these proposals are just that, they're proposals at this stage. Today they were approved to go forward by the Cabinet, but they will now enter a period of public consultation and also go before the Council's scrutiny committees before anything is finally approved.
Cathy Wardle reporting there. Now, a Plymouth businessman has been jailed for 15 years for killing another man by running him over with his car. Luke Dan ran over David Kelly in his Range Rover in March. He denied both murder and manslaughter, but a jury found him guilty of manslaughter. The judge at Plymouth Crown Court said he'd used his car as a weapon.
There are calls for an independent inquiry after a new report from the University of Exeter highlighted incidents of sexual assault, harassment and rape are rife amongst colleagues in surgery. Research found that 2/3 of women working in the surgical workforce in the UK had been subjected to sexual harassment, and 1/3 reported sexual assaults, with many saying they were unable to report the attacks. The report has been described as a Me Too moment for surgery.
Again, it's one of those things that seems to have been hiding in plain sight for a long while now. And when you talk to surgeons, especially when they're in operating theaters, you hear about the difficult situations they're put in where they might have a supervisor who's responsible for making decisions around their competencies and their training, who are perpetrating these forms of assault and harassment. And that makes it quite difficult to stand up to that sort of issue, right?
Next tonight, Cornwall's growing mining industry could be ready to start commercially extracting lithium within the next 3 years.
Well, today a major conference took place in Falmouth, and industry leaders say testing is going well as the county looks to become a global hub for sourcing this precious metal. Sam Blackledge sent this report.
We may not realise it yet, but before long we will all come to rely on this shiny, sparkly, almost invisible material to power our everyday lives. Lithium can be used to store energy produced by renewable sources, for smartphones and cameras, and for the batteries needed to power electric cars. Lithium is currently mined in Australia and South America, but as these conference delegates found out today, Cornwall could be transforming into the new lithium capital of the world.
Where we're standing right now was the richest square mile on Earth in 1830s, and that was copper and tin, and we're now coming all the way full circle, obviously, as we went into the fossil fuels era, where we're burning things, coal, oil and gas, and now we're going into renewable energy, which is powered and stored by lithium batteries. I think it's got great potential because it brings employment, it brings high-tech jobs, and it brings a sense of pride back to Cornwall as well. I think it's going to add a lot to the economy of Cornwall, beyond the tourism and everything else. But a lot of young people in Cornwall feel they have to go out of the county. We're hoping they'll stay here and have a rewarding career, not just a job, but a career.
Lithium can be sourced in two ways, either by extracting it from geothermal waters or mining it from granite under the Earth's surface. The process takes time, patience, and a lot of testing.
OK, Jeremy, this looks like a very impressive bit of kit. Just tell us what we're looking at here.
What we're looking at is our latest lithium extraction pilot plant, and it's really a giant water filter. So we're putting our water from underground through that column, extracting the lithium. So this is really the exciting bit of modern technology and how we're going to get lithium out in Cornwall.
Down the road in Falmouth, people gathered today to share that excitement and to swap ideas about the future of mining.
There's a lot of potential for critical metals and a lot of resources within our country, so it's very exciting.
I'm from Cornwall, so I grew up here surrounded by mining, and you didn't really hear about much, you just see the mine houses everywhere. But now you talk to primary school students and they know what's going on, and that's all because of the work of the people around us.
They might just look like simple pieces of rock, but soon the power of Cornish lithium will be getting us where we need to go. Sam Blackledge, ITV News.
Now, the equivalent of a small town of people are now working on site every day at a new nuclear power station being built in Somerset.
Hinkley Point C began construction in full over 6 years ago and is due to start generating electricity in 2027. There are now 10,000 workers there a day, as Ben McGraw now reports.
Hinkley Point C is emerging from the ground up, largely thanks to the now 10,000 workers on site, not much less than the population of nearby Minehead. Many are local and part of a wide range of apprenticeships.
Personally, I did it completely on a whim. I come from the Oval, which is quite local, but everyone goes into aerospace and I wanted to do something different, and I thought building power stations, that sounds pretty cool.
Being from Bridgewater, I've always lived locally and always been interested in what it was all about. So when I started back in 2021, it's obviously really developed.
As well as construction, training on a simulator is happening for those who will run this place when it's operational, but there's plenty to do before then.
The next 6 months of site is going to continue to transform, and there's a lot of excitement and anticipation about those milestones. So putting the lid, putting the dome on top of the reactor building was a really big moment for us. But fundamentally, the people on the site are key to us. We can't build it without the great trades which come from all of the UK, but all over Europe as well, to help us build HPC.
The huge number of jobs here means that the size of the nuclear industry's workforce in the southwest is second only to the northwest of England.
Well, it's hugely significant. There's more than £5 billion has been spent in the local and regional economy as a result of what's happening at Hinckley, and you'll see there are people working on site in a range of different capacities, all contributing to what is the biggest construction site in Europe, which is a really important part of helping us get to a net zero, energy secure future for the country.
In just under 4 years, these new pylons will help transport electricity to 6 million homes from this site. Plenty to do before then, though, for this community of workers. Ben McGrail, ITV News, Hinkley Point.
And you're watching ITV News here in the West Country with Seb and Kylie. Thanks very much for joining us this Wednesday evening. There's still plenty more to come on tonight's programme before 6:30, including we meet Cornwall's charity maid who's raised thousands of pounds for good causes.
And Kate will be joining us with the weather. How's it looking?
Well, you know what? Clear skies last night meant that this beautiful sight was captured over Cornwall. Are we going to have clear skies tonight to see more of that again? Find out with the forecast in just a few minutes.
But next, it's 70 years since the start of the Crossing Patrol Service. That's lollipop men or women to you and me. And their long history has meant many of us in our lifetimes would have likely crossed a road safely with the help of a lollipop man or woman.
But as patrol officers celebrate, our reporter Rashid has been finding out they've been rather a bumpy journey during their last 7 decades.
All right, my darling.
Lollipop men and women have been protecting school children for 70 years now, safely guiding them to and from the school gates since 1953.
Quick, Olivia!
Linda has held the protective pillar of her community in Newton Abbot in Devon for 16 years.
I've always loved my job. You know, I don't think on a Sunday night, oh, I've got to go to work tomorrow. I think, yes, back with the children and keeping them safe, obviously, that's the main thing.
And with more traffic on the roads, parents and pupils at Decoy Primary say the service has never been more vital.
Without it, we worry about crossing the road because the cars just don't stop.
Well, it's really important because without it, we could maybe get squished or when you're crossing.
We must all cross the road with the lollipop lady, lollipop lady.
Despite the name change to school crossing patrols, the role has stayed largely the same over the years. The uniform is similar, now appearing brighter and more reflective. Officers still have to deal with unruly drivers, and concerns about job security have stood the test of time.
How did you feel when you learned that you'd be getting the sack in April?
Hard to describe, really. I don't really feel that they've got the right to do it.
Figures show those historic issues remain a present-day problem. Since 2009, the number of lollipop men and women has fallen from around 7,000 to an estimated 5,000 in more recent years, a loss of just under a third of all school crossing patrols.
Hi, Thea. Thea, all right?
But for those left, protecting families as they walk into school has never been more important.
Thank you. See you later.
You know, since the 50s, things have changed. We have, often cameras outside of schools, zebra crossings, street markings, really good signage. Do we need lollipop ladies still?
I think we do. I mean, I don't have a zebra crossing and I don't really have a camera here, but I think they're very important to teach children how to cross the road properly. It can be a little bit dangerous.
The government has thanked those like Miss Hill for their service and says it's given nearly 10% more cash to councils in the last year, which could be spent on securing school crossing patrols.
Come on, young gentlemen, you may cross.
So while it's been a bumpy journey for our crossing patrol officers over the last 70 years, it seems more likely than not we'll be seeing officers like Miss Hill on our streets for many more years to come. Raheem Rashid, ITV News.
I love that. Raheem managed to get across the road there very safely. Do you remember having a lollipop man?
Yes, Mrs. Evans, who is amazing. I think they're amazing. I think it's worth having because some people don't actually follow the rules of the road, so that it does make crossing a bit difficult.
And we saw at the start of that report there was a little girl who hugged her lollipop lady, and that's lovely, isn't it? Seeing the same person every day.
And the parents appreciated knowing that they're safe as well, which is great. Yeah.
Now, how about this? National Trust is hoping it's developed a pioneering project to reduce flooding. Using tons of felled trees, a stretch of river in Somerset has been largely locked off to slow it down.
And new vegetation has been added to create wildlife-friendly wetland areas that will make the landscape more resilient to climate change. Richard Lawrence reports.
They're calling it river restoration, but at first glance, it's more like river obstruction. The National Trust is proud of what it's achieved here in the first project of its kind to respond to the challenges of climate change.
A lot of people would say, this is no longer a river, you've created a right old mess.
Yeah, we have, but for me that's the point. Nature likes a mess, it likes a bit of chaos, a bit of dynamism, and that's what we've tried to do here is, restore a bit of that complexity that we've lost in our river systems.
Stopping a river is a radical thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been some nervy moments during this restoration, but as I think you can see, it's worth it. So yes, we can have some grazing here, we can have an amazing river system, and we can have some wildlife.
In a matter of weeks since the work was finished, there are signs that wildlife is already thriving here across the new basin.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible what's happened in the last 6 weeks. We've gone from a completely dry landscape to we've now got dragonflies mating and laying eggs in front of us in the pond. You can see how it's greened up. It was bare soil as well at that point. So yeah, the reaction's been pretty spectacular.
In spells of dry weather, it should help keep the ground holding moisture for longer too. Permission for the change in the landscape wasn't easy. The Environment Agency had never dealt with an application before to fill in a river. But now they say it could be vital to help slow down floodwaters.
We need different approaches to managing flood risk. So, the traditional approaches of building flood defences and, raising embankments more and more and more. We know that that's not sustainable with climate change, and therefore, we need a mixture of traditional flood defence schemes, which are still very important, but also these kind of more nature-based solutions which we have here, which, have a very big role to play.
What they've effectively done is filled in the river channel that is the River Aller and tried to stop it in its tracks. The water levels happen to be quite low at the moment, but there will be times when this entire area is flooded, and that's the whole point, to reconnect the river with the floodplain.
The Somerset Rivers Authority believes this could be a model for other risk areas.
You get a double whammy. You get to reduce the risk of flooding further downstream, and you get a tremendous benefit to wildlife in all its aspects.
Its progress will be watched closely in the hope that it could help shape national policies to encourage landowners to help change watercourses to reduce their impacts of extreme weather. Richard Lawrence, ITV News.
Well, the ITV News continues with the national and international stories at 6:30. Here's Lucrezia.
After weeks, an international manhunt comes to an end. The father of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif, found dead in her Surrey home, will arrive in the UK tonight, along with 2 other family members. We'll have the very latest. Also, a city in ruin. More than 5,000 now confirmed dead after floods in Libya. Thousands more are displaced as aid struggles to reach those in need. Uncovering the illegal fake pharmacies that pose a deadly risk. And the bumps in the road, slowing down the repair of England's potholes. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
But next, it's time to meet the latest nominee in the Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Regional Fundraiser of the Year Award. Now, you may not have heard of Fred Thomas before. There's every chance you've heard of his alter ego, Betty Stoggs.
Yes, the Cornish man took on this character 14 years ago and has since raised nearly £400,000 for charities including Children's Hospice South West and the RNLI by jumping out of planes, running marathons and cycling hundreds of miles. Charlotte Gay went to meet him.
Even if you've only seen her the once, you won't forget Betty Stoggs in a hurry. She cycled 200 miles in full bloomers jumped 10,000 feet out of a plane over Perranporth and led many a parade during Falmouth's summer season. But the man under the makeup, Fred Thomas, may be less familiar.
It's just like being in a giant pantomime. When the audience is having fun and they're happy, they tend to part with their money, and people seem to love having Betty around.
And they certainly do give, because Fred has raised £400,000 since becoming Cornwall's charity maid 14 years ago.
We're all down here to support Betty and the Oggy Men, and she's here to raise money for the RNLI, and she, as you can see, is doing the most incredible job.
What is it about her that could just like rouse the crowd like this?
I think it's her personality. She's so... There you go.
Bit raunchy when she starts singing, but my goodness, fundraising, beyond belief the amount she's raised over the years. She's a fantastic role model.
Well, she's just become an icon for Cornwall. Started off with Skinners, obviously. She leads a marine band. She's just become very well known, very popular. It's just something that's worked.
She started it to just do it for 12 weeks, and 15 years later she's still doing it.
I think Betty's just inspirational, and it rubs off on other people and they want to help.
Now, Betty Stoggs is a Cornish folklore character, originally made popular after Skinner's Brewery named one of their pints after her. But Fred has never been paid a penny to be Betty, and despite making national news raising money for many causes, including the RNLI, his dedication has always been to Children's Hospice South West.
He is out day and night fundraising. He comes in, he's raised another £500 from a bucket collection, or he raises £2,000 or £3,000 from another event he puts on. To say this man is relentless is an understatement. What he does for Children's Hospice South West, we are in awe of.
It costs £11 million a year to fund their 3 hospices, and this sensory garden is just one of the ways they bring joy to families with children who have life-limiting conditions. Fred says it's a charity close to his heart.
Matt, my nephew, at the age of 6 weeks, was given basically hours to live, and this hospice then hadn't been built. I thought that would be a golden opportunity to help those families spend a bit more quality time. That's why I do Betty Stoggs, because it's very close to my heart, and if I can help any family to spend their precious time with their loved ones, that's why I do what I do.
Matthew is now 22 and cannot believe how much of an icon his uncle has become.
Fred's always it introduced me to people to go like this, look, you're the reason why I do it.
It's a character, but it's also Fred himself. It's the way he communicates with people. He just has a way of making people give to the charity.
Cornwall is lucky and fortunate to have a man who is so humble and so generous with his time and effort. He should be sainted. We just think the world of him and everything he does.
Well, even the dogs of Cornwall can't wait to meet her, and the sea shanties about her many ways are still being sung. But Betty's status as a legend lives on through Fred's sheer determination to bring a smile to punters' faces, but more importantly, precious time to families who may not have long with their loved ones.
What a legend.
Amazing. You'd never know, would you, that Betty was Fred or Fred was Betty?
I know, he's so calm and relaxed,
Yeah.
and then this character goes
I
in.
know. Absolutely brilliant.
I love that picture of Betty jumping out of the plane. That's just great. Kept the wig and everything.
Yeah.
It was great. Well, we'll hear from one more of our Pride of Britain finalists tomorrow before revealing our winner on Friday.
But now it is time to take a look at what the weather's up to. Kate's at the Met Office in Exeter for us. So, Kate, we're a bit topsy-turvy, to be honest, aren't we? Because it was a nice day today.
It's been lovely today, hasn't it? And to be honest, I can't believe that it's September, and it certainly doesn't feel like autumn at the moment, does it? It's been so hot and humid the last few days, and those really humid nights as well. But last night, well, we had lows around 8 or 9 degrees in some parts of the more rural parts in the countryside. Today, we saw highs around 20, 21, and that's what we were having at night. So things certainly more comfortable at the moment, but the warm weather isn't finished with us yet. You can see on this air mass chart, got a warm plume of air and some showers that want to push in over the weekend. Now, depending on the timing of those showers, it's possible we could see temperatures back in the mid-20s over the weekend. but still plenty of sunshine to enjoy. And our camera operator, Penny, was out on Exeter Quay today. And we've had really light winds, and that's really noticeable by that water. It just looks like glass. Very peaceful there today. Some fluffy clouds, but it didn't spoil the sunshine. Let's find out what else is to come over the next few days.
Whatever the weather, it always feels like home. Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country weather.
So you might be pleased to know there's a bit more sunshine on the way over the next few days. Mostly dry, but there are some showers to watch out for on Saturday and indeed Sunday as well. We've had this little ridge of high pressure today. This front here looks like it might cause us a little bit of trouble, but actually it skirts by us and we remain fine and settled to the weekend. So through this evening, a little bit of late sunshine and then a dry and clear night. But with clear skies and light winds, got the potential for a little bit of shallow mist and fog in places. Certainly a more comfortable night for sleeping. Lows around 12 or 13 degrees, maybe even a little bit lower in the countryside. So tomorrow morning, any mist soon clearing and we're back to the sunshine once again. Maybe a little bit of cloud bubbling up through the afternoon, but really high cloud, not really going to bother us too much. Temperatures around 21 degrees, obviously not as hot as we've seen recently, but still above the average for the time of year and nice and warm too. If you're thinking of heading to the beach to make the most of that, here are the times of high water. Looking at Exmouth, 7:15 in the morning and 24 minutes past 7 in the evening. And after that, you can see on Saturday, there's a little plume of showers working their way towards us. They could be heavy and thundery, giving a real rumble of thunder here and there, particularly on Sunday, could merge into longer spells of rain. But that all translates to Friday being a fine and dry day, plenty of sunshine around. Those showers getting going over the weekend, but there will be sunny spells in between. And you will notice it feeling a little bit warmer as well for a time. We could see highs up around 22 or even 23 degrees on Saturday.
Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country weather.
OK, Kate, thank you very much indeed. Now, just before we go, would you go to a pub that doesn't serve any alcohol? Well, the Dry Dock in Weymouth is doing just that and offers alcohol-free wine and beer instead.
Yes, it's become a firm favourite among the locals since opening, and you can find out what makes it so popular over on our website. I bet it's the fact that you don't have to wait for a taxi.
Yeah.
And that's it from the two of us. We'll have the late news for you at 10:30.
And after the break, the ITV News continues with Lucrezia Mellarini. But from all of us here, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.